What is going on? I want to thank you for coming to Vape with the Viking. So today what I got for you is an RTA by Damnvape and the Mind Flayer RTA. So the Atemporal is a collaboration between Damnvape and the Mind Flayer. Single coil, different things going on with it type of RTA. Of course, on the Hadron Light side-by-side mod and in extension mode. So it'll do a little more juice capacity. We'll talk about that towards the end there. And rocking some Dark Star Zolo in there. Been all up on that. I'm very familiar with the flavor profile on there, so been using it a lot all of a sudden. So before we get into the ins and outs and where to get in, how much and all that kind of good stuff, pros, cons, all that stuff, let's get into vape advocacy. So like usual, definitely go on to Twitter, follow, retweet, check out our vape advocate generals. You know who they are, you know, Grim, Bogan, Matt, Phil, Dimitri, all those guys. So sorry if I didn't mention you. Those are the ones I just go to. Those are my go-tos. So definitely go there for up-to-date information through different organizations like CASA, Not Blowing Smoke, but also see some of the political people and what they're doing with vaping or what they're trying to do either for or against and all that kind of stuff, and your local legislation and others legislation. So hopefully keep more informed to keep our rights to vape. And of course, ADHD awareness. I say every single time, go check out How to ADHD. Whether you have the disorder or not, very, very valuable information on there to help with the disorder or certain aspects of it, or to even help others that you know that have the disorder with that as well. And even coping mechanisms for yourself if you do not have the disorder, so you don't maim the loved one you have with the disorder because you don't understand what is going on. They're just being not cool. So stuff like that. Definitely really, really, really good information. Plus she's on all the different socials, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of good stuff. Definitely check that out. But depending on when I get this review out, there is something in the works for you. So definitely watching her review, get a little special little almost reveal or teaser, let's say. I am actually in collaboration with a company. So not going to give any details out because things are not finalized. Things are rolling, but you also know me. As soon as I start talking about something and make it all open, it doesn't happen. So 99% sure that's not going to happen here, but just in case, I'm not telling you, just stay tuned. There you go. Or if the announcement's been made by the time this came out, you know what I'm talking about. So, but I'm ready. Are you ready? Yeah, I think we're ready. So we're going to drop the hammer on the Atemporal. All right, so what I got for you today is a RTA from Damnvape and the Mind Flayer. This is the Atemporal or Atemporal. It's a long word, but it's Atemporal. So on this side of the box, you're going to have the Mind Flayer's logo. He is a designer and I believe used to be a reviewer and builder out of Spain. On this side, you're going to have the Damnvape QR code and the UPC and your color configuration. Of course, here you have Damnvape and the Mind Flayer. And then on the back, you'll have some specs. Bottom AFC 24mm single coil, new juice drain system, spring-loaded clamp, and all that kind of stuff in the warning. So in advance, I want to thank Damnvape for sending me this for the purpose of review, but he also sent some kind of matching drip tips when it comes to the kind of color combo they got going on here. So you got a black and kind of a hyper pink, and then kind of a hyper pink or fuchsia drip tip, and then a purple, which you can get these from Damnvape directly. They're just their 810 resin drip tips. All right, so in the box, what you're going to get is your user manual, your bag of spares and stuff in there. We'll go in a little further detail. You'll have a straight glass here, a bubble glass, and then of course the RTA itself. And in your bag here, you're going to have, of course, all your O-rings. They're all black O-rings. You're going to have a single coil in there. You're going to have this piece right here, which is for an extension, and you're going to have your deck screws, and then there's going to be some springs in there because this is a spring-loaded deck. And with the glasses, you have the straight glass here and the bubble like I was showing you out of the box, but then you also have a taller one. So that is what that has, that little, basically it's a extension. So that's what was in the bag, because if you look, you'll have your standard straight glass, which is going to be your 2 mil capacity, and then you have your 5 mil capacity taller glass. So you see it's just a smidge taller because that's what that's going to be for. All right, so let's look at the rest of this. Up top, you do have a standard 810 drip tip. Anything of yours that you have will in fact work in there. Anything customizable. So definitely not anything out of the ordinary. So you can use all your favorite 810s. I'm looking at this guy though, and of course, black on black on black on black. It's hard to see, but it's got a really interesting kind of lip ridging to it. So I'm definitely going to try that out. It's definitely a little bit, I would say a little more open than some of the 810s you'll see on a single style, but it looks like it could be very interesting, if not at least comfortable. Well, hopefully for comfort, at least interesting looking. Let's put it that way. Of course, up top here, you do have some really nice knurling. This stuff is nice and grippy. There's no way that you're not going to be able to get a hold of this thing. And it is one of the quarter turns. You quarter turned and then it pops open, which right now everything's dry, so it's nice and tight. And then down in there, you'll see your kidney shaped fill holes. So just quarter turn back on. And then on the bottom, you're going to see Damnvape. You're going to see the Mind Flare, which is the co-designer, and then Atemporal RTA. And you do have a very nicely protruding gold-plated 510. And yes, what is that? Do you see that? Oh, of course, I lost focus. There you go. You see that? You see that kind of whitish gray stuff on the outside of the threading? Yeah. So definitely shout out to Damnvape for that. This is truly a hybrid safe mechanical device. You with that peak hanging out even further past the threads, and of course the 510 itself, that it is easily going to be safe for hybrid mech mod. So big shout out on that. You know I hate that. But anyway, so let's go on the bottom here. A little harder to be see here again. You do have a little bit of branding on the outside. It's the Atemporal, same on the other side. And you'll see there is the airflow. This is kind of interesting. It's a kind of like a, I wouldn't even say quarter turn. It's like an eighth turn. So basically you go one direction, it's full open, next direction, full close. And it's a very short travel, like very tiny, like a little twitch one way, close, twitch the other way, open. Now on the bottom, you do have the exact same notch and knurl going on here. And again, very super nice knurling. It's grippy. Like I think even if my hands had juice all over it for some reason, it would still grip onto there. So pulling out the bottom, everything's nice and smooth. And this is what I thought was a little different to begin with. I'm used to this on like Steam Crate products, so, and only them. So when I did that, I'm like, uh-oh, I broke it. But no, again, it's kind of like a Steam Crate product where it'll actually pull out. So on the inside, what you're going to see is actually some PEEK material up to the chimney. That's actually really neat. And then of course those guys down here, these are where your juice is going to go through. So like your juice fill ports, your juice or wicking ports essentially. So when you have it filled up down here, you'll see it's kind of got that angle cut out there where the juice is going to come down, or the feed tubes. There we go, feed tubes. But I was actually really shocked to see this. That's PEEK. I know it's kind of hard because I have to kick up the lighting to get some detail since it's black on black. But yeah, that is that kind of weird tannish gray PEEK material you see in 510s. So for what that's going to mean is this is going to be able to take some pretty good heat if you so must want to put something huge and ridiculous in here or run super high wattage. So that is a really neat feature. And for this to be, you know, a mass produced, affordable device to have some even more PEEK in it, that's pretty nuts. All right, so we're gonna take a look at the deck itself, and just real quick, because I haven't shot him out in forever. Bearded Viking Customs. Come on, guys. If you don't know Brent, I don't know what you're vaping on, but also if you guys know Obey Robot, he's with Bogan and ODB, and now Tony B and guys from OG Leather created their own company, Obey Robot. So Bearded's doing a lot of stuff for them, but he still, of course, has his Hulk stands available. Love these stands. And then on the deck itself, you'll see yet again, You're going to see this common thing on here. I don't know how they're going to make this affordable, but you have more peak. So what they did is they used one side of the airflow to put their peak in to finish out this whole deck. Of course, there's the other airflow on that side, O-ring there. And then the deck itself, definitely interesting looking. I think mostly if we first look at the just kind of the airflow and kind of the deck positioning, stuff like that, we're automatically going to think of several different products out there that we're used to seeing with that kind of airflow configuration and basically skate ramp or U shape. But when you really start digging into this, this is where it's going to look quite a bit different and have some different features. One of the things that they really kind of pride themselves on was the juice drainage system, and kind of hard to see with all the stainless and the light, but you'll see these little slits down in here. There's one on this side. So as you saw with the top, those two feed tubes are going to be straight down here, which when you put your coil in, your wicks will be there, and it's going to basically go straight to the wick. Now, one of the things that they show on here is this is their juice drainage system. And if you can kind of look at how they have it set up, is it has what they call a reflux hole. And it's like basically like a half pipe design is what they did with that. So in essence, what it's going to do is your juice is going to drip down those tubes onto your wicks. And as you vape, hit the button, whatever you want to call it, take a rip, etc. Of course, the juice is going to be drawn up into the wicks, into the coil there from the heat source. And then any of the usual, like just kind of leftover juice as it cools will eventually on all devices take and possibly start dripping down on your base plate. Well, the problem is, especially with something with a bottom airflow or something very close to under your coil here, is eventually the condensation will build up, and eventually you might get some weeping out of your airflow, or maybe even some gurgling, so on and so forth. So these holes, essentially these little cutouts, are going to make it so that juice here will be naturally attracted to that cotton when it's warm. So essentially you're going to have this action where it's going to come straight down on your coils, come through essentially the coil. If it condensates, it'll come down, and then it'll come right back out to your wicks. So kind of a little like almost think of two like ovals almost. And it's not really an oval. In the picture, I think they showed like a D or something like that, but it's going to go down, coil, down, back up to wick. So kind of neat little deal there. And the other thing I thought was kind of interesting is, one, these are a spring-loaded deck, which is, I always like spring-loaded on something that has a top like this, mainly or off to the sides, like the profile and stuff like that. When they did those to begin with, when they started putting the springs in the deck, I was like, okay, now I'm digging this, because I hated flopping it from one side to the other. So yeah, these are a spring-loaded. This is different. So here's the other innovation, I would think, or something different at least. You're going to put your coil in differently than you normally do. So normally we put them into the side somewhere, and you put it roughly right here in the middle, clip it off to the edges, and sometimes you got to fight to get down into that edge. This is going to be different. You're actually going to take and where we normally have a coil, where we take and try to bend the legs basically out, either flat or at this angle, so on and so forth. Well, you're still going to kind of do the same thing, but instead of, taking and bending them at a V and putting them down, you're actually going to put it up. So that's how this one works. So you put like one leg under here, and then you would take and have the other leg more stretched out than this and put it the other way, and then screw it down and clip them right here off the top. So you can be nice and flush. And yeah, so that's definitely interesting on there, but it should make the placement fairly easy as well, pretty straightforward. And here's kind of a representation of what it's supposed to look like there. So there's your deck, you have it unscrewed, put in your coil basically upside down, then take and tighten it down, clip them off the top, and you're good to go. And of course the wicks will go down into each one of the channels. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to try this thing out. So yeah, we'll throw some Dark Star in there, do maybe like a little bit of a pair drops, which was one of the labs a couple months ago. But all right, let's get this rolling. All right, we are back up on top with this little single coil banging RTA. That is the Atemporal by Damnvape right here, and the Mind Flare. So I'm not 100% positive, so I could be wrong on this. The Mind Flare, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure he was a channel back in the day, or if anything, maybe is somebody in the vaping community that I think does designs every once in a while. Sorry if I'm completely wrong on that, so sorry, my bad. Didn't do my research beforehand, so I'm so sorry. So let's get into definitely pros and cons, maybe some specs too. It is a single coil RTA. I believe on the spec sheet that I saw, you can fit up to, I think it was like a 4mm coil in there. It's got a pretty decent sized deck. I probably wouldn't go that big just because I want it to be cradled just right. Juice capacity is 2 mil, 5 mil, and 6.5 mil. That's the way I first started running it, with the bubble glass and the extension at 6.5. But I like it on the Hadron Light side by side, so I took off the bubble so it actually fit in there. So yeah, definitely pro for me is that spring loaded clamps on it, or the build deck posts. There we go. One of those things down there with the thing and the thing and the thing. But I definitely like this spring loaded to it. Makes it so much easier to deal with the coil legs, especially because this is, I would almost call it an inverted build deck. It's, you know, it's a little different. It's not where you put the legs in straight and you got to make sure you have that, hopefully that little catch, get one leg in, get the other sunk in there, not a problem. This one, it's upside down, so you got to put it in, and it's upside down. It was a little different to begin with, but when you really sit and appreciate what they did with it, because there's even little dip cutouts where the legs will travel through, it's a really cool idea. The only thing that I would say that maybe isn't really a con, but I did play with the coil at one point in time, and I put it lower so that it was really even with the rod, like the rod was touching where it was supposed to on the deck. That actually kind of muted it for me. So I noticed if you use some kind of coil rod and you go and you put it in there and everything, when you go to press it down, if you kind of either just bump it up just a tad notch, or just kind of let it relax and don't keep pulling it down all the way down so that that rod's touching, that in my opinion was perfect. It was banging out really good flavor. Right now I still have it a little bit in a lowered position, and again I went a little too low. Again, it's a little muted, not bad, but if you just literally put those legs in there and just kind of let the coil rest in that natural position of where it wants to stay into, clamp it down, cut it off, you will be good to go. Now, what I used in there was just a 3mm alien coil from Twisted Timmy's. It was doing really well. Came in at a 0.2, 3.5 volts with some Zolo, and it's full wide open. Check it out. Definitely a restricted lung, because it is a single coil, smaller outer openings, but again, with that coil being a little lower, not only does it mute it a little bit, but it almost is too warm to really take a real big lung hit off of it. Now with that coil more in that natural position, I was blowing clouds a little denser than what I was just doing then, and the flavor was top notch. So I never got the review up for it, but the Blotto single is a good example of the realm that this guy is in. With the Blotto single, it had more airflow feel to me, just because one, of course, much bigger AFC opening, but it had all that airflow going around the coil. This one is going to be mostly kind of bottom to side, because as you saw, the rows are more at the bottom like this. So almost like a GT4, I believe. Never tried a real one of those. Sorry. But really reminds me of that, just smaller, more honeycomb-like instead of 3 big holes. Really reminds me of that, but of course not the price tag. This thing is, I've seen anywhere from 40 up to, I think somebody had it for 55, but average price is around, I think it was like 45 is where I was finding it. That versus like a GT4 price, whoa. So yeah, that to me, that's a big pro, is the fact that I think it could probably, at least airflow wise, go toe to toe with the GT4. but I definitely like it. It is a little more restrictive, like I said, than the Blotto single, but I kind of like it a little better too, though, mainly because there's not a lot of user error here. You can control that AFC, even though it's very tiny. You can control it, but it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, in my opinion, on how open and close. It does restrict it down, but like I said, I just leave it open because it's not that big anyway, but closing it down really doesn't do too much other than almost make it warmer. It doesn't really affect flavors so much. But another pro is I like how they did the juice wells, essentially, that cut out at that 45 degree. There are a lot of RTAs out on the market that, depending on where their juice flow goes through, once you get down to a certain level, you just got kind of a remaining bit of juice at the bottom, and you either got to sit here and do this and make sure it goes down there, or or just refill it or something like that. This makes it so you can get almost every single bit of juice out there, and even when it gets under that oval, you just barely go, huh? And it goes right down into the hole. So that was really, really innovative in my opinion. The extension was nice and tight. I did have a little bit of leaking with the bubble, but that was on me. What I didn't notice was when I took the other glass out, the O-ring at the bottom had went with it, and I didn't see that. So that didn't work real well. So definitely check your O-rings when you're changing out your glass. If it sticks to the glass, you're probably going to have a little bit of a leak. But with that being said, huge shout out to Damnvape and the Mind Flayer. You guys made a rocking RTA for a single coil. Like I said, super easy to build. Just like I said, don't be pressing your coil down as far as possible, clipping the tops. It's so easy to get them flush because it's just right there on top. Building it easy, wicking very easy, and it's just working really well. So definitely, if you are in the market for a single coil RTA, go grab this from them or your normal sites or possible brick and mortars. But and of course, if you don't have in your brick and mortar, tell them to contact them, get them in, because this thing is banging. So that is all I got today for the Atemporal RTA, of course, from Damnvape and the Mind Flayer. I just want to thank each and every one of you yet again for coming to Vape with a Viking, and I'll check you later.